So, yeah, my name is Meng. I'm a pianist, and I came to the Feldenkrais method through a pathway of pain, really bad, debilitating pain. And I tried all sorts of things. I'd been to lots of different treatments, went to lots of different exercise regimes, and nothing worked until I discovered the Feldenkrais method. Now, it wasn't a quick fix, but it was definitely the road to freedom. So, as this topic today is about reducing pain and injury in practice and performance, maybe I could just see a show of hands if you feel you have any sort of discomfort or pain or injury from your musical activities. So I'm just going to scroll through. Let's have a look. I've got 3 people on my screen. So just carry on putting your hands up so I can see you. Yep, so quite a few people. And statistics have it so that, various researchers that I've read have put the statistics between 70 to 85%. That's a pretty high percentage. So through the Feldenkrais method, it's really helped me not only with my pain, but everything else in life. So I hope I'll be able to share some of my insights anyway into, practicing in a way that perhaps we don't need to get ourselves into trouble, right? It's not really necessary. So the first thing I'd like to do is, again, some of you came early and have already started playing your instruments or singing. And what I'd like you to do is, if you sit to play or an instrument, or do sit down, and if you stand to play an instrument, please come to your feet and stand. And sit or stand in the way that you would sit or stand to play your instrument or to sing. And what I'd like to do is to invite you to have either a real instrument or a virtual instrument, and it's to begin to go towards your instrument and pick it up and bring it towards you. Obviously, if you play the piano, it's just about you bringing yourself to the piano. If you're a singer, just maybe you need to bring in the atmosphere into your environment. Just get ready to play your instrument or sing, and then put your instrument back again. And I would like to touch base on some of the things that the previous Feldenkrais lessons have addressed. One is your sense of support. Whether you're sitting or you're standing, how do you feel your sense of support? From your feet, from your sitting bones, and how does your breathing lend to your sense of support? We opened this Musicians Week with a beautiful lesson by Anita, who taught a lesson on breathing, and she gave us the image of balloons and various parts of us that can help us support our movements. So maybe you can take this image with you as you're sitting or standing, playing your instrument. You can imagine, what is your sense of support, not only from your feet or your sitting bones, but also your breathing. And then if you're using your arms to hold an instrument, how do you feel the weight of your arms? Do they feel heavy? Do they feel light? How do they connect to you? Again, Emma did a beautiful lesson on shoulders and arms a couple of days ago, and lots of people wrote very positive remarks like feeling um, ease and length and weightlessness. So how is your relationship of your arms to the rest of you? And then maybe slightly more, not so concrete, what is your sense of presence? Maggie did a beautiful lesson yesterday. She talked about presence. How do you relate to your instruments? Or how does your instrument relate to you? Are they two different things, or are you part of the instrument and is the instrument part of you? Lovely. And just please leave that and come and find a place to lie on the floor. Today's lesson will be on the back, so you might need a little folded towel or something to put behind your head if you need it. Some of you might not need it. Just make sure you're very comfortable. And as this is a Feldenkrais lesson, it's not about achieving. Your comfort is the most important thing. And indeed, if you have discomfort or injuries or pain, please don't do anything that will exacerbate your pain. Great. And if you can lie with the legs long, have your legs long. If not, you can lie with the knees bent, feet standing on the floor. Just what's comfortable for you. And I'd like to start off with a little scan of how you feel the floor supporting you. And I'd like you to kind of reduce your image in a way to what we call the 5 cardinal lines. And what I mean by that is, if you can imagine a stick drawing by a 5-year-old, although I'm not sure 5-year-olds these days do stick drawings anymore. They probably do more fanciful things on their electronic devices. But, you know, a stick image is sort of 5 lines, 1 line for the spine, 2 lines for the arms, 2 lines for the legs, and a sort of round ball-like figure at the top of one of the lines, which will be a spine line. So I'd like to start off with how you're sensing your central line, which is the line of your spine. How long can you feel the length of your spine? Marilla talked about the length of the spine being from your coccyx, your anus, right up to the place just behind your ears. Or if you were to drop a plumb line from your nose going down, that's roughly where the top of the spine is. So it's pretty long. So just have a sense of how long you feel this line, and whether this line lies, when I say straight, I don't mean straight in terms of the curves we have in the spine. I mean straight in the way that it divides the left and the right plane, which again Maggie was so beautifully described yesterday. Indeed, how do we know what is left, what is right? And I would imagine a lot of people will have very different sensations between the left side and the right side. We're all very asymmetrical in the way we use ourselves. So from the line of the spine, you have 2 lines of the arms coming out. Again, you can tune into the length of the length of the 2 arms. and whether you experience them in an identical fashion. Perhaps one arm feels longer than the other, wider, warmer, colder. And be curious as to where you've positioned your arms, as in, are they very near your torso? Are they far away from your torso? Is one closer to your torso than the other? And how have you chosen to place your hands on the floor? Are you resting on the palms of your hands, or the little finger, or perhaps the back of your hands? And you could maybe try some of these variations, however you've got your hands, try them. Maybe if you've got them palms down, try them, placing the pinky on the floor, or try them at the backs of the hands, and maybe change directions as well of where we put our arms, because so much of what we do is habitual. And, I've just asked you to lie on the floor and you've all placed your arms, however you've placed your arms. Is this the only way you could place your arms, or do you have options of how you could bring your arms? You might find that actually if you moved your arms a little bit one way or the other, or change the orientation, perhaps it might be more comfortable. And let's go down to the two lines of your legs now. So again, you could tune into how long the two legs are. Does one leg feel longer than the other? Does one leg feel wider, warmer, colder? And without looking, just have a sense of how you think, where you think your toes are pointing towards the ceiling. Are they both identical? Do they point at exactly the same angle, or does one point out a little bit more than the other? And let's go on to your head, this wonderful spherical object at the top of your spine. Begin to roll your head gently one side and the other side. And that's not to go to your maximum. In Feldenkrais, we always look for the quality, not the quantity. So what is the quality of your head rolling at this stage? What is the range? That's not to say, you need to push yourself further. Just be aware of how easily your head can glide easily, roll easily from one side to the other. And as you do that, and stop it at any point. If you feel a little bit dizzy, just stop. You can always just roll it left and then right and then come back to the center and stop. But as you're rolling your head, can you also have the sensation of your other 5 lines? The line of your spine, the 2 lines of your arms, and the 2 lines of your legs. So for me, this having a complete image of this stick man was really, really fundamental in my rehabilitation from my pain. Because so often we just use ourselves in parts, in segments. So for example, I'm just using my neck, or I'm just using my arms, or I'm just using my legs. But really, whichever part you're using of yourself, if you can include all of you in the movement, it really makes life a lot easier. Lovely. So now we're going to work on one side, primarily on one side. So you choose the side you would like to work on. And if you have an injury, may I suggest that perhaps you work on the side which you don't feel any pain or discomfort. Because when we move through pain and discomfort, we could be triggering off those, we could be triggering the brain, making those connections together, which means, you know, every time you move, it hurts, and therefore your brain links them together. So if you do have one side that's a little bit more challenged than the other, I would suggest you go for your easier side. And you can do this with your legs long or your legs bent, your knees bent and feet standing. So begin to, okay, the first thing I will ask is to maybe place the hand of that arm that you're working with on the pinky side and begin to roll your arm or your hand towards the floor and then towards the ceiling. Just what's easy, just what's comfortable, almost like, you know, either I'm in the room with you, just gently rolling your arm, or, you know, if you can imagine maybe the wind blowing and the arm is just rolling with the hand coming towards the ceiling and then towards the floor. And it's got, and you're breathing freely as you do this. Your jaw is soft, your eyes are soft. And leave that. And I'm going to give you some sort of ideas for variations of what you can do with your hand. And throughout this lesson, I invite you to play with all of them, or maybe one of them, you know, you choose. So we could incorporate the bell hand, which we have been doing the last 2 days, firstly with Emma and then with Maggie. And the bell hand, for those of you who weren't here, is the gentle bringing of the fingertips towards each other. So as you roll your hand or your arm towards the floor and towards the ceiling, how can you bring this bell hand into the movement? And how does it affect the rest of you? Remember, right at the beginning, I said that, you know, in this kind of stickman image, when you roll, when you move one line, it's not only that line that's being affected. So how does the sort of gentle rolling of this arm, how can you sense it in your other 4 lines? And please leave that. And then another variation is to make yourself a loose fist. So you're not clenching your fist, you're just making a loose fist, and repeat that movement. How does that affect the other 4 lines? And then I'm also then going to incorporate Rebecca's version of the fist, which is to put the thumb lightly into this rolled up fist. So nothing, and if that causes pain, please don't do it. So if any of my suggestions are kind of triggering off feelings of panic or discomfort, just leave it. Just carry on doing what's easy for you. But if you can, you know, you're making a loose fist and you're putting the thumb inside the loose fist. How does this affect the sensation? It's such a minor change, but even those minor changes have, you know, could affect changes in your breathing, could affect changes in the way your shoulder blade is rolling, is moving on the floor. And you can stop at any time. You know, you don't have to keep on doing the movements, although I will keep on talking you through these variations. So feel free to stop anytime. You might just want to do 1, 2, or 3 variations and then stop. And then, of course, the last variation is probably where the first one you started off with, which is just your hand being a normal hand, which is softly cupped. So it's neither fisted or it's neither straight. So you have these different variations of how you want to use your hand in this movement. So please leave that. And you can lengthen your legs if you like. And go back to this sort of scan that we did at the beginning of your stickman, your 5 lines. Perhaps even by doing such gentle movements of rolling the hand and arm, you may feel that the length of your arms, you may experience a difference in the length of your arms. So we're just going to be working on one side. So leave your legs long and bring the leg up of the same side hand standing. So if you're working in your left hand, please bend your left knee and stand your left foot. If you are working in your right hand, please bend your right knee and stand your right foot. And with your bent knee, with your standing foot, begin to gently tilt the knee towards the midline and away from the midline. So that's gently tilting it left and right. So the knee is tilting, is moving in space. How else are you sensing this movement? Can you sense in the way that you're shifting weight on your feet? So as you tilt your knee to the inside edge, the weight also, as you tilt your knee towards the midline, the weight also moves towards the inside edge. And as you tilt your knee away from your midline, the weight of the foot moves to the outside edge. So for now, I would say, please keep the foot on the floor. The weight in the foot changes, but the edges of the feet don't come off. And please leave that. Please leave that. So we're going to develop one of these movements. We're going to develop the movement of moving your knee towards the midline. So as you tilt the knee towards the midline and the weight transfers onto the inside edge of the foot, begin to press a little bit with the inside edge of the foot so that your knee begins to move not only towards your midline, but also brings your pelvis with it. So you begin to roll a little bit more towards the opposite side. So it brings the pelvis of that leg with it, and whatever ribs it brings with it. So the trajectory of the knee would be not only towards the midline, but also heading towards the opposite foot. Not that it's actually getting there, but that's the kind of general direction. So, and then always bring your knee back to the center, to the starting point. And then you may want to stop and have a rest for half a second or 1 second before you do the next movement. Because this is not like an exercise where you keep on repeating the same movement. You do one movement and you go, oh, my knee is connected to my hip joint, which is connected to my pelvis, which is connected to my spine, which is connected to my ribs. And how high can you trace this movement of the connection? With Feldenkrais, it's never about the movement itself. It's, it's what the movement asks of your entire self. Okay, and leave that, and you may want to lengthen your leg. And again, And every time we do a variation and we come back to where we started, where we were scanning, it's a good place to touch base to see how your 5 lines are now doing. And please bend the same knee and stand the same foot again. It's a long way from your foot to your head. So let's begin to invite the head to participate in this movement of the knee tilting. So as you tilt your knee towards the midline, could you also invite your head to roll in the same direction? So if your knee is tilting towards the left, your head would roll towards the left. And if your knee is tilting towards the right, the head will roll to the right. And then you can choose to do this movement either by just, tilting the knee tilting the knee towards the midline, or you could maybe begin to engage the process of pressing with the inside edge of the foot to connect more to the upper parts of you to do this movement. And then perhaps you could then also tilt your knee now to the outside edge and allow your head to also roll towards the same direction. So the head is always going in the same direction as your knee. And so just imagine there's a connection between your head and the knee, so that the head and knee turns. As musicians, we all know this, timing is one of the most important things. So the head and the head rolling and the tilting of the knee happens and ends at the same time. So it's not as though you do one movement and then the other, like you tilt your knee and then your knee stops and your head keeps on rolling, or you roll your head and it stops and the knee keeps on tilting. So the two are connected. As you roll your head and tilt your knee, they start and they stop at the same time. And begin to put these two movements together, the tilting of the knee to the left and right whilst you roll your head to the left and right. Slowly, 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 slowly. And you can always do these movements in your imagination. If lying on the back is uncomfortable, you can always just, close your eyes, imagine you're doing this. And stop the movement for a minute, please. Keep your feet standing, keep your foot standing, and stop that movement. And now, what is it like for you to move your knee and your head in the opposite direction? So as one goes towards the midline, the other goes away from the midline. This is a process we call differentiation in the Feldenkrais method, where different parts of us are doing different things. Okay, please leave that and lengthen your legs if you can, or if not, keep them standing. And be curious to see if working such small movements on one side have made any difference to the way you experience your 5 lines. So bring the same foot standing again. We're now going to put all these three movements together: the tilting of the knee, the rolling of the head, and the rolling of the arm. So in whatever fashion that's comfortable to you, it's not about, being goal driven. Begin this movement of tilting the knee and rolling your head as you roll your arm, all in the same direction. Making sure that you're not clenching your jaw or holding your breath. Let's keep your eyes soft as well. And play with how you, the four different possible hand variations we talked about at the beginning. I would invite you to play with whichever ones, that's four, which is just the hand lightly cupped as it is, or we could do the bell hand, or we could do a soft rolled fist, or a soft rolled fist with the thumb in it. Because you'll find each different hand variation will give you a slightly different response with your other lines. And, as I said before, feel free to stop at any moment and have a rest to let your brain digest. What I'll do is I'll keep on talking through the variations. So rolling is a very safe, it's very comfortable, comforting and safe thing to do for our nervous system, because everything's going in the same direction. The nervous system doesn't feel threatened. It's very nice. And indeed, babies love to be rocked and rolled. So now, without changing the quality of this movement, remember quality, fluidity, what is it like for you to carry on the rolling of these three parts of you, but now invite your head to roll in a different direction to your knee, to the tilting of the knee and the rolling of your hands? And indeed, I described it as the tilting of the knee, but you may, in fact, feel it as also the rolling of the foot to match the rolling of the hand, because your foot is rolling as your knee is tilting. So how easy is it for you to make this differentiation of the head being moving in a different direction from your arm and your hand and your foot. So one is going away from the midline as the other approaches the midline. And let's stop that. And then what would it be like for the head and the knee or the foot to go in the same direction and have your arm going in the opposite direction? Again, without losing the quality of the movement, the fluidity. Keep the breathing nice and easy. Keep your eyes soft and your jaw soft. And play with the variations of your hand. And then, we could also play with the possibility, what if your head and your arm were to roll in the same direction, but your foot or your knee is moving in the opposite direction? How does this feel? Okay, and let's just leave that. Let's leave that and rest in whatever way you find comfortable, either with the legs long, legs bent, and tune into the sensation of your 5 lines now. Has anything changed in the way you experience the line of your spine, the 2 lines of your arms, the 2 lines of your legs, and indeed your left and right plane, having done a lesson extensively to one side? So now please bend the knee of the other leg now. So we're going to do the other side, but we're going to do an interesting thing. We are going to fast track this movement because your brain would have, we spend quite a lot of time on one side, so your brain would have figured out what you need to do. But we're also going to do this side mainly in our imagination, because if you have an injury, and indeed, when I was really suffering as a pianist, I was practicing probably in my imagination maybe 4 to 5 hours a day and just playing for half an hour, maybe an hour, because that was all I was capable of. And research has shown that when you imagine something and you visualize it really clearly, you trigger off the same motor neurons. So let's go through the variations we did. Very simple. So just do this in your imagination for now. So we're going to start off with the tilting of the knee. So in your imagination, begin to tilt your knee towards the midline and away from the midline. And the foot is rolling to the inside edge and the outside edge as it does that. And then you can bring your head as well to roll in the same direction that your knee is tilting. Just do all this in your imagination for now. And even when you're doing it in your imagination, there might be small micro movements. So obviously, because when we imagine something, we're still triggering off those motor neurons. So there will be small micro movements. And then you can begin to bring the arm now into this soft rolling movement towards the midline and away from the midline. So you're rolling yourself towards one side, towards the midline, then you're rolling yourself a little bit away from the midline. And then let's just do that in actual fact. So you can release yourself from your imagination and begin to roll all these 3 parts of you. Was it exactly as you imagined it? And now I would like to invite you, and perhaps as musicians, we probably are a little bit more coordinated than the general public. So you set this lovely sort of rolling movement going. It's almost like a gentle moto perpetuo, some sort of a ostinato. Without skipping a beat, is it possible for you to change the direction of one of those parts? And again, I'm not going to be directive. I'm not going to tell you, you move this and that in one direction and the other one in the other direction. You have 3 parts which are rolling. It's like a counterpoint. So, the counterpoint's all going in one direction. And then without skipping a beat, keeping the same rhythm going, you begin to shift the counterpoint. So you move one part in a different direction. So you're beginning to differentiate one part. And then as that part becomes differentiated, see if you then can invite another part of you to do something different. So at one point, one part will be moving in one direction and the other two parts will be moving in different directions. And within that, there are quite a few possibilities. And if you can do this with a nice, easy quality, nice, soft, hypnotic, mesmeric quality, so there's no sort of catch of your breath when you start thinking, oh, what's moving now? Is it my head? Is it my arm? Is it my knee? If you find that happening, just stop and start again. Because this is what happens in practice sometimes. We get kind of caught in a pattern of practicing. So when you find, and then we start to hold our breath, tense up, and things could go downhill from there. So see if you can just keep the rhythm going and just very gently just say maybe one time, oh, I'm just going to move my knee in a different direction, and then, oh, I'm just going to move my arm in a different direction, or I'm just going to move my head in a different direction. So you have a conscious thought process going on. You're moving one part, but the other parts also have to be attending, because it's like a juggling act. And that's what we call coordinated movement. Because for some people, they find this actually very, very tricky. Okay, and then just leave that and just have a quick rest. And we've done one side in detail, the other side a little bit more quickly. So I'd like to just finish off just integrating the both sides. Could you please stand both of your feet? And so now you have the option of using both sides of you. So the knees can tilt towards the left, towards the right, and the arms will be like also windscreen wipers. They roll, one will roll kind of towards, one hand will roll towards the ceiling as the other one rolls towards the floor. And then your head can also then roll wherever you choose for it to roll. So be playful with this. Like a child, a child being given, different toys, and then the child exploring, see, oh, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? All in the spirit of curiosity and playfulness, no judgment, and please don't do anything that causes pain. And you can stop at any time, but I'll just carry on talking. The reason why I chose this lesson was because when I was in a lot of pain, it was very difficult for me to actually be still and do a quiet lesson. The ones that worked best for me was when I was moving, but moving safely and gently. And the best thing was, anyone who's been in pain, pain really is very shouty. It's right in the forefront of everything. And it's very, very difficult sometimes to quieten that sort of shouty experience. But by doing something like this, by engaging the brain, into doing different things. You're in fact distracting the brain. And I remember when I first did this lesson, and I really had no idea what my head was doing, what my arm was doing, what my leg was doing, but I was so lost in the whole thing that for that period of time I felt no pain, because all my brain power had gone into just trying to figure out where are my bodily parts and what are they doing. So it's a very, very powerful tool. Great. And just leave that and have a rest. And just quickly, and I say quickly because I actually have a slideshow I would like to do, and I'm just looking at the time. Just scan your 5 lines and just notice if anything has changed from the beginning of the lesson. How do you sense the line of your spine, 2 lines of your arms, 2 lines of your legs, and your head balance on top of your spine? How do you sense your 2 planes, the left and the right? And please gently roll your head to one side and the other. Just notice if anything has changed for you. And I would like to invite you, as you now begin to move towards rolling to one side and bringing yourself up to sitting and standing, to do so with the with the thought that you're collecting all your 5 lines. So as you move, what is the possibility of you kind of having all your 5 lines in your consciousness? As you bring yourself slowly from the floor into sitting, and then sitting on the floor, and then perhaps, just like at the beginning, if you sit to play your instrument, you can find that chair to sit on, or if you stand to play the instrument, you can stand up and have a virtual instrument. You don't have to have a real instrument, but you can, of course, if you prefer have a real instrument as well. And ask yourself, how are my 5 lines participating to do this movement of bringing my instrument to me or me to my instrument? If you're playing the piano, is it just your arms that are moving, or is it a possibility as soon as you begin to lift your arms to find, some connection between your other 5 lines and your head? And the things we talked about at the beginning were support, breathing, the weight of your arms, the presence, and the relationship of you to your instrument, or your instrument to you. And you can carry on doing that. I'm going to share my screen now because I have the slideshow, and I'll be talking through it, so you don't have to right, let me just get rid of that. So, reducing pain and injury in practice and performance. According to various studies, the prevalence of musculoskeletal disorders in instrumentalists is fairly high. It ranges from 70 to 85%. The reason for this could be long hours of practicing and rehearsing. It could also be from incorrect body alignment, resulting from lack of awareness and inefficient use of oneself. This could lead to tension in playing and stress and anxiety in performance. If not addressed, this could further lead to pain and injury in practice and performance. And the one that I want to have a look at is this one. So, the reason for this could be long hours of practicing and rehearsing. Well, rehearsing, there's not really much we can do about, but long hours of practicing. I shared with you my story of practicing in my imagination, and that's really, really powerful. So this next thing, it could also be from incorrect body alignment. Now, I use that term because that's how most sort of conventional, I don't know, body workers tend to think of us. You know, your body is out of alignment, you know, you've got scoliosis, you've got this, and you've got that. I don't actually like that. From a Feldenkrais perspective, I would like to change incorrect body alignment to functional disorganization, resulting from lack of awareness and inefficient use of oneself. So, how to experience an awareness through movement lesson. We'll just do this quickly. Go slowly. Why? Because slowing down calms the nervous system down. It increases awareness of what and how you're doing something. It enables you to have choices from habitual or compulsive behavior or thinking. But wait a minute. Maybe we can also apply that to our practice. If we practice a bit slower, if we go slowly, we also slow and calm the nervous system down. So when we encounter difficult passages, you know, we're not practicing them with this sort of pattern of anxiety or tension. If we go slowly, we also increase awareness of what and how we're doing something. And more importantly, it enables us to have choices from habitual or compulsive behavior or thinking. And in ATM, we reduce the effort. We are so used to efforting and straining. Please stay within the comfortable range. It increases learning, and paradoxically, it gets better results than if you strain and push yourself. We can so apply this to our music making, right? And learn to whisper to your body, not shout at it. Reducing the effort improves the quality of the movement. It makes it smoother and more fluid. So we're not just talking about, you know, movements in ATM. We're also talking about our music making. How, if we do things with less effort, it makes our music making smoother and more fluid. And finally, stop if you feel pain or discomfort, because you will be reinforcing the sensation in your movement. You begin to make it a habit. And as we know, habits can be, you know, pretty hard to break. So please don't associate pain with your practice or your movement. So you can make the movement smaller or do it in your imagination. And this is applicable for everything, really. Letting go in order to maximize your potential. Pause briefly in between each movement. Let go of any effort and don't hold on to contraction from the previous action, both in movement for ATM and also in our practice. Rest often gives time to pay attention to the changes, as the brain needs time to digest material. And breathe easily. Any holding of breath implies excessive effort or tension. Tension or pain masks sensation. So two of my favorite quotes by Moshe Feldenkrais is, "Our only limitation is our belief that it is so. And if you know what you do, you can do what you want." And one of my favorite quotes, also by by senior Feldenkrais trainer who trained with Dr. Feldenkrais, David Zamat Burson. He says, if you treat the whole person, their organization and their problems will improve too. And maybe this is something that we can discuss at the end. And I'd like to leave the last one. Practice makes perfect. Yes, no, maybe.